side.
Accentuate the positive.
Always look on the bright side of
one bad movie at a time.
Welcome to Your Movie Rocks, an alternate ending podcast where all movies are great movies.
Even the bad ones?
Especially the bad ones. I'm your host, Mandy Albert, and today with me I have, I think, the current winner of the Most Frequent Guest Award for this show, Andrew Milne. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm sure that that award will be snatched from me before too long, or at least tied for it. But no, I do like coming back here. It's always a pleasure to join you.
I believe next month's guest will have tied you for it, but
okay, good.
I'm going to just take it as a compliment that people want to force me to watch movies so badly.
No, that's it. This is something I've realized since this show started last year, which is I think all of us sort of interpret the Your Movie Rocks mandate slightly differently. Like we all have sort of different ideas about what we want to do with this show, what we want to force you to watch. And I guess in my case, it's not even so much a question of good movies or bad movies. It's just sort of weird niche items that I know for a certainty that Mandy would never, ever, ever seek out on her own recognizance.
Well, funnily enough that you should mention that.
Okay.
But yes, you are absolutely correct, is that we have a fascinating mix of main character motivations here in the Your Movie Rocks world. And as it turns out, you're being very true to form this time around. Mm-hmm. But before we get to that, in case anybody is joining us for the first time, a little bit on how the show works. So for every show, my guest assigns me a movie to watch, and we discuss the movie, just like the 10,000 other movie podcasts you listen to, except that there's a catch. No matter what, I am only allowed to say nice things about the movie. My guest can say whatever they want, but me, only nice things. And furthermore, only sincere nice things, not I loved it when the actors started mumbling and I could no longer hear the dialogue. If I have nothing nice to say, I'm lying, because every movie does something right. Okay, Andrew, what weird niche movie that I would never in 1,000 years have sought out by myself have you brought to the table this month?
Okay, so this is the 2012 Imaginaerum by Nightwish. By Nightwish, I believe, is part of the title. It's certainly in the closing title card. So a word about that title, because this is something we brought up.
That title card made me think a little bit of Ghosts Can't Do It by John Derek, but it is not the same kind of movie. Sorry, no. Continue.
I actually remember when this was in production all the way back in the early 2010s, and I believe when it was announced as Imaginaerum. Apparently they ran into some...
Because that, you say, is a word-like collection of letters that is capable of being pronounced by most human tongues.
Yes, exactly.
Unlike the actual title of the movie, which I'm still not sure how
well,
to say.
The thing is, this was made by the Finns.
True.
And they have a
their
way
tongues
of,
are not our tongues.
No, their tongues are it's weird. You've got these Scandinavian dialects like Norwegian, Swedish, Danish, all very similar. And then right next door to them, you've got Finnish, which might as well be from Mars, as far as the rest of the
Pretty
world
much,
is concerned. But yes, Imaginaerum, as it came to be known, ran into some copyright issues because it was releasing right around the same time as the Terry Gilliam movie, The Imaginaerum of Dr. Parnassus. And they had to settle for what ended up being a much worse and much less marketable title.
Oops.
So I'm curious, Mandy.
Though, was this not also the title of the album that it's based on, or did they have to change the title of the album to avoid the copyright issues too?
I think the album sort of was a bit sort of baby out with the bathwater. Yes. So they're both called the same thing for brand synchrony. But I'm curious, Mandy, to what extent, if any, are you familiar with the music of Nightwish?
Okay, so here are the things that I knew about Nightwish going into this movie. Number 1, one of my best friends from grad school really likes them.
Oh, cool.
Number 2, metal, ?
Okay, so...
There ends the sum total of things I knew about Nightwish.
I was just thinking back to your conversation with Brennan a couple of months ago about how, when you were you were in high school, you were listening to like Warren Zevon or like Johnny Cash and stuff like that?
Yes,
Okay,
I
so
was the coolest high school student.
you were the coolest high school student. You were ahead of the rest of us by about like 8 years. Um,
But it
for
means
my
that I
part,
skipped whatever would have been the Nightwish phase altogether.
so for my part, for people who were born in the 90s, like getting into sort of like alt rock and metal in like the early 2000s, the way I think of it is Nightwish are the band you graduate to from Evanescence. Like um,
I can 100% see this.
yeah, they got big around 2004 with the release of Once. Formed in the sort of mid 90s by three Finnish friends around a campfire. They started out as sort of a more sort of straightforward power metal band with a lot of like guitar and keyboard leads. In the mid 2000s, they sort of pivoted to something a bit more unique, which is this. They kept the sort of distorted, down-tuned guitars, but they pivoted to a sound that's much more influenced by cinematic music and musical theater. Lots of very lavish orchestration, and that sort of became their watermark. And it's what made them big. Certainly, they to the extent that they got big, 'cause they are pretty popular still. They're still selling out big venues to this day. But yeah, the mid 2000s was probably the height of their popularity. And this was around the time that they started to get really ambitious with the sort of multimedia approach, which ended up in the album Imaginaerum, which was composed as a concept album in concordance with a movie that I think, if I'm remembering rightly, the band's keyboardist and sort of general impresario Tuomas Halopainen um, developed. I think he actually mortgaged his house to get this movie made. It was definitely a big passion project from him from the
What was
word
the
go.
budget on this? Because it can't have been tiny.
It wasn't tiny. It wasn't huge. I think it was. I'm remembering this vaguely, but I think it was just north of $1 million.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, it was. I think they definitely stretched what resources they had, but you can tell that it's not exactly a lavish Hollywood production by how much
No,
it
but
wants to be.
for like a snot-nosed indie project, that is a perfectly respectable budget because it forces you to be restrained in the areas that don't matter to you so that you can go nuts in the areas that do.
Exactly. Yeah, that's very much where Imaginaerum lands. Um, I was kind of curious to talk about this one for a long time. One topic that I posited a while back for like a general podcast roundtable was movies based on concept albums. And that kind of died on the vine because I realized, like, when I looked into it, there isn't really enough of those for it to be a fruitful discussion. There's really just like there's Tommy, there's
This
Quadrophenia, there's The Wall, and that's kind of it.
If you're willing to really stretch and squint, you could make the case for Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that
like
was still a stage musical in the interim, so I don't think it really counts.
yeah, and then you've got like the Beatles movies like Yellow Submarine, but again, that's sort of like that's stretching the definition. But I don't know. A lot of my favorite albums are concept albums, and I'm still bitter that we never got the Operation Mindcrime movie that I really wanted. So it's just like this is sort of my way of finding my way into that topic, just sort of
Okay, so
slantwise.
when they released the album, like were they always planning to kind of do an 85-minute music video along with the album? Was the story of the film also part of the album? Like how much are these two inherently part of the same animal?
I think they're pretty tightly interwoven. Yeah, the story is loosely there in the lyrics of the 74-minute CD, but it's a lot more elusive. It's not really the narrative is not very distinctly formed, as it tends not to be in sort of rock opera. The actual story, most of the narrative conceits really come through in the movie just by themselves. I was kind of struck on this rewatch just how some of the ways that the songs are incorporated into the album. Sometimes it feels like very natural, other times it feels like a stretch. I don't know.
And I will be curious. I, of course, loved every single thing about this movie, but I will be curious whether you favored the times that the music felt a little bit more natural or the times that the music felt a little bit more like an intrusion.
Yeah, so there's a sort of case by case basis to get into on that because like there are some places this film goes, and you can feel it straining at the seams to sort of fit like the structure of a narrative feature. It just barely gets there, but like the fact that this is essentially an 85-minute music video is it makes itself very present throughout.
There are some places this film goes. So this movie is an experience. It is sometimes quite literally a wild ride.
Yes, like we're not speaking too figuratively there either.
Certainly not. No, that scene that we're both referring to very subtly occurs near the end of the movie, so I'm not sure I really want to get into the specifics of that one just yet. But it's, our all-father Tim Brayton is fond of talking about movies that teach you how to watch them. And this is very much a movie that from the beginning is teaching you how to watch it.
Yes.
And it would be very easy to look at the movie in its opening minutes and be like, what is this Tim Burton knockoff shit? However, and like it is, a very Tim Burton-esque dark fairy tale in some ways. The snowman that ends up playing a pretty big role in the plot and themes bears a not small resemblance to like a steampunk version of Jack Skellington.
Oh, definitely. I mean, like
However,
Tim Burton is not an incidental. Like we don't even that's not even inference on our part. They've said as much in interviews.
I feel like they'd have to.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get here without having seen a few choice Tim Burton movies. Like, there's the whole, like, everything is kind of vaguely blue-white at the beginning color palette. There's the obvious constructedness of all the scenery. There's the prominence of the music, though, of course, we're not dealing with Danny Elfman here. But the movie leaves behind... Well, I don't know about leaves behind. The movie cuts the umbilical cord from Tim Burton fairly early on, I would say.
Yeah, I would say you wouldn't mistake this for like there are other ideas in the same melting pot. Like it's not a film that is under it's not a film that's understuffed, shall we say. There's a lot of
Indeed.
things competing for prominence and a lot of just influences that are freely sort of swirling around and being associated.
And the thing about Tim Burton is that while he is a very, visual storyteller, story is still in a place of prominence in most of his films. Like, they have coherent plots that go from beginning to end. We're not dealing with any Lynchian dream visions when we're watching a Tim Burton movie. That does not describe most of Imaginaerum. I am never going to pronounce this word the same way twice. Imaginaerum. I think I did okay.
That works.
We're going to go with that. There is a narrative to the movie. The narrative is sometimes important and sometimes not. Sometimes we have to simply interrupt the narrative to have a Nightwish concert.
Yes.
And that is fine. Because among other things, you can't get an 85-minute movie out of this narrative. And I don't think the intent was ever to get an 85-minute movie out of this narrative.
No, it's much more of a mood board. It's a collage. Yeah, like you can feel the concept album of it all. Just yeah, it seeps in at every turn. Broadly speaking, the gist of the story is we've got the main character who is Thomas Whitman. Both of these names are like fairly on the nose, as will become plain. He is a
Indeed.
composer who's at the end of his life. He's in palliative care in a hospital, comatose, and his daughter.
The most blindingly white hospital you ever did see.
My God, like yes, it's like that's a sterile environment if ever I saw one. Like that I trust the physicians at that hospital.
Oh yeah.
They're doing their job. He is basically, as I say, he's in an induced coma. His daughter, who is, I want to say Jem Whitman.
Yes.
Yes. She is basically making the decision whether
GEM. This will be very important later.
yes, and she's making the decision whether or not to pull the plug and medical right of attorney and all that. And overnight, she sequesters herself in a hotel nearby the hospital during a snowstorm, where she is confronted by the singer from her father's old band, and they sort of work through their memories and their recollections of their time with this strange, distant man who neither of them feel like they really knew all that well. While this is going on, these scenes are interspersed with a dreamscape taking place in Thomas's imagination, wherein he sort of remembers himself as a child, and he goes through this sort of series of like loosely connected hallucinations where he's remembering his life in an orphanage, opens the window, and he's confronted by this snowman who takes him out on this very walking in the air style voyage, like an adventure through his id, I guess you would say, his
Hmm.
subconscious, and it's all of this very free floating association of symbolism taking place against this sort of dark Tim Burton esque green screen realized fantasy world. And yeah, it's an experience, and of course, this is all underpinned by a series of set pieces that are inspired by the songs on
Hmm.
Imaginaerum, the record.
Was the was the singer from Thomas's band also played by the singer from Nightwish, or do they just look very similar?
Well, okay, yes. So the singer from his band, Annette Olsen, who was the name of the singer of Nightwish at the time, she shows up. She's in the Slow Love Slow, which is the first of the two like music video sequences, which is the sort of like slow lounge jazz number.
Hmm.
You see her in the red dress or crooning over the piano.
That's an amazing dress.
It's an amazing dress. She is played in like the memories of Anne by Annette Olsen. Again, they're not being coy with the illusions here. In
Indeed.
the older version of Anne, who Jem speaks with in the present day, is played by Joanna Noyes.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. Because they
yes,
look like they could be twins.
they
I
look
had
like
no idea that was a different person in those
they look
scenes.
like they could be mother and daughter. I think, yeah, like they're very. I think Joanna Noyes was very clearly cast for the resemblance. So
I was so sure until this very second that that was just Annette Olsen in old age makeup.
it would work. Like I think you could have got away with that, but I'm not sure how good her English was. But that's neither here nor there, because of
Even
course,
Joanna Noyes speaks with some kind of fairly pronounced accent, though.
yeah. I mean, for what it's worth, in present day, the septuagenarian version of Thomas is played by Francis McCarthy. Yeah, Francis McCarthy is the actor's name. In flashback, we see the same character played by Thomas Holopainen. Um,
Hmm.
so this is like there's not really any ambiguity here. The band that they're talking about in like they're referring to is Nightwish. Like,
And
that's
they absolutely cast Francis Xavier McCarthy
yeah,
because of his ability to look like a much older, oh dear, Tuomas
Holopainen.
Halopainen. Is that it? Okay, it's like jalapeno, but not quite.
I hope so. Like
I'm I'm I'm
we're
so
saying this
sorry.
off air. Like Finnish is one of those sometimes I just sort of plow through the pronunciations of foreign names. Finnish is one of the languages where I just can't get away with that.
No. To anyone who is Finnish out in the audience who is listening, we are so sorry, and that is all we're going to say about that. Um, but anyway, let's go ahead and talk about those two like concert video scenes because
Yes.
I freaking loved both of those,
Okay, so the
and
first
for
one of
very different
those,
reasons.
yeah, the first one of those, they're very specifically like held in contrast to each other. There's
Mm-hmm.
Slow Love Slow, which is, I gather it's meant to sort of evoke the first time that Thomas met Anne in his past, like the sort of like
Mm-hmm.
seduction scene, like these two were sort of an item back in the day, and it's this very smoky, very smooth, very sensuous jazz piece. It's sort of evoking like 1930s American like clubs, like bars you would see in the Prohibition era.
Hmm.
And
Annette Olson is draped over the piano.
yes, yeah, and you've got all the rest of the members there, like in full sort of period dress. Like it's very My Chemical Romance, sort of very very Black Parade kind of vibes.
Hmm.
Like they're really playing up the sort of Hot Topic energy there.
And in the meantime, there's like this club full of mannequins,
I think
and
so, yeah.
the only non-Nightwish humans in the club are Baby Thomas, played by Quinn Lord, who
Mhm.
is famous for something else now, if I remember correctly.
I think he has a prominent role in The Man in the High Castle, if I'm remembering
That's what
rightly.
I'm thinking of, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And Baby Jem, who is also running around through Thomas's id. Um, I have to obsess over the dress that Annette Olson is wearing a little bit more. So I have red weak eyes. It's very rare among females, but I have trouble seeing red
Well,
fully.
interesting.
Sometimes it shows up as other colors. Sometimes I mistake it for other things, and it has made me, I think, an excellent judge of reds in movies, because when I can tell that they're red and bright red, I know they're good. That is a red dress that
Yeah,
she was wearing.
it's the most sort of I think
It
you
is
would
screamingly red.
I think you need to watch the first Resident Evil movie if you haven't.
I
The
have, yeah.
okay. Yeah, the Mila Jovovich dress in that film. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's comparable. Like yeah, it's just the most sort of full um yeah, just sort of passion red, like it's sexy red. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, it's a great look.
I think it's about 15 feet long, too, in the skirt.
Yeah, there was the singer that Nightwish had prior to Annette Olson, and we'll come back to this because this is perhaps relevant. Um, Barja, she used to wear the most amazing red coats on stage. Like she
Okay.
could make that like that was such a great sort of contrast to the sort of general dark blue and black and sort of silver, like a lot of sort of muted colors in their general color scheme. The red, like in the female lead singer, is always sort of held in contrast to the rest of the band.
I love it. I love this as like a music video within a giant music video too. It reminded me of actually some of REM's old music videos,
I don't think
which
I've watched a
were
lot of REM's old. It would be funny because they were one of the first bands I ever really fell in love with, but I don't think I've watched many of their
same,
videos.
same. So a lot of their videos were either directed or conceived by their singer Michael Stipe, who
Hmm.
is known to be something of a giant weirdo. Um, but he throws together visuals much in the same way that he throws together lyrics, which is like, these two things would look or sound interesting next to each other. Let's put them next to each other and see what happens. And if you're trying to figure out what they mean, you're going to go in all sorts of fancy directions, because what they meant when they were put together was, I thought these two things would look cool next to each other, or look
Entirely
interesting next to
informed
each other.
by his whims, which
Yes.
I think is a fruitful artistic strategy more often than it's not, because it throws up things that you can't necessarily predict.
Though it always keeps things interesting. And I think that might have been a little bit of what happened here, because there are certainly places in this that you can hunt for symbolism. Like the fact that the only, real beings in this club are the band and Thomas and Jem, and everything else is made of plastic around. And perhaps the same sort of plastic that those, or metal that those soldiers that we'll get to later are made from. And even just the very song that is being performed, the color of the dress, again. But the other thing you can do is just not worry about it and just treat the whole thing as
Yeah, as
a bonkers visual experience,
just sort of let
visual
yourself be
auditory experience.
carried along with it the way you would a dream. Which
Hmm.
is, I mean, I know dreamlike is one of the sort of most sort of trite ways to describe a movie when the narrative doesn't necessarily make point A to point B sense. But I don't know, dreamlike is often fun. It's not
It is.
it's not
And
an indictment.
it has a bit of like a David Lynch character to it.
It does well. I mean, the sort of jazz club like Red Room, like it has that it definitely has that sort of Twin Peaks energy. I think that's certainly what
I
it's
was
hunting
I
for.
was reminded not a small amount, not even just of the Red Room, but of the Roadhouse scenes in Twin Peaks, where Julie Cruz and her band are performing.
Or indeed, Club Silencio, Mulholland Drive.
Indeed. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Tim Burton and David Lynch influence not being imagined here at all.
No, definitely not.
And then we got to the music video scene in the circus.
Yes, so this is for the track Scare Tale. I think these two tracks were pretty specifically chosen to contrast each other. This is like the one point where the album sort of flirts with actually getting heavy. It's the one sequence that actually has a bit of double kick to it. And it has like as its sort of centerpiece this where it's essentially informed by circus music. It's evoking this very nightmarish vision of a circus, like a big top. And it has this whole bit where the
Which,
music
like,
goes
yes,
into
circuses are scary, well established.
oh
But
yeah. Yeah, I mean there's narrative reason for this. But it has this middle section where I think it's in I'm I'm terrible with time signatures, but I think it's 2/4, where it's just a bum 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 bum. And the
I
whole
think you're
thing is
right. Yep.
accompanied by the band's male singer, Marco Hietala, who gives like probably my favorite cameo of any of the
Whose
band
voice is
members.
terrifying, first of
Like,
all.
ladies and gentlemen, it's an absolutely wild sort of like nightmare vision of a like a circus impresario, a ringmaster. He just absolutely goes full ham. I mean, this recording is actually taken straight from the song on the album, so this is all like
Okay.
this is all taken straight from the CD. But he's there in costume and he's giving this absolutely wild gesticulation. Like, it's full music video, and I love it. Like it's the most like it's certainly the most high energy performance we get from one of the band members.
It's so cool. It is edited and directed like a music video, which is exactly the correct approach to take here, because it adds such a frenzy to what's already going on that you can never quite tell where anybody is in relation to anybody or anything else until that one like split second moment where you see older Thomas and Jem sitting in the audience together.
Yeah,
And that's like the only grounding moment that you get in the entire sequence. In the meantime, you have this like crazy dance number between Baby Thomas and all these whack-ass clowns in zombie clown makeup. And then you have this creepy song that's going on. The thing that I guess not Tim Burton here, because this was the good Willy Wonka, but the thing that I kept thinking of was the boat ride in Willy Wonka and the
I can
Chocolate
see that.
Factory.
Yeah, I was almost thinking of Rob Zombie.
Also fair.
Yeah, I think there's sort of something from there's an element of maybe House of a Thousand Corpses in there, maybe a little bit Devil's
100%.
Rejects. Yeah, something like that.
I think more House of a Thousand Corpses than Devil's Rejects, because Devil's Rejects is just too raw of a movie
Yeah, that's
to
probably
really
fair.
come up as a comparison point, where Thousand Corpses has this level of stylization for at least parts of it. But yeah, this is kind of the moment where the movie like decided to be a horror movie for 5 minutes, and I was completely there for it.
Absolutely. And like this is all tied together with the idea of Thomas is being taken on this journey by this sort of snowman character who's very. I mentioned Walking in the Air earlier. Again, that's not an idle comparison. Nightwish have covered Walking in the Air.
Mhm.
It's actually the name of one of their compilation albums. But it all turns a bit sinister because it turns out this snowman is not actually a sort of beneficent sort of like spirit guide. He's actually
You
a sort of
don't say.
yeah, he's almost more like a kind of demon, and he's like this kind of demiurgic figure who's feeding on Thomas's memories, and is ends up being like this kind of figure of pursuit, sort of chasing him from one of these sort of hallucinations to the next.
Yes, his name is Mr. White,
Yes,
and Thomas's last name is Whitman. Wouldn't it be fun if there were any connection between those two?
um, I I just recently wrapped up a rewatch of Breaking Bad, where that
Oh,
exact
okay.
connection is like that is the basis for a plot point that spans multiple seasons of that show. So
Uh-huh.
that's just a fun bit of personal resonance for me at the moment.
You know what? Sometimes subtlety is overrated.
That's true, yeah. Um,
This is not a movie that cares about being subtle.
oh, definitely not, no. And not about being coy with its illusions, as we've said.
Also, given 2012 and a $1 million budget, I am very impressed with how well the visuals hold up.
Yeah, so this, like, it is, just for how many effect shots are actually present in here. Um, the the rendering of most of the backgrounds is very detailed considering what they had to work with. I think the points of articulation, certainly the snowman himself, Mr. White, he is like the articulation isn't quite there. It feels sort of underbaked, like when he's actually moving around and interacting with the human actors.
I don't hate it, though, because it gives it a little bit of uncanniness that he seems to be moving at a different frame rate than everything else in the scene.
Yeah, that works. And I mean, we've already talked on this show about In Praise of Despiser, where
Hmm.
the what we call flaws in photorealistic rendering aren't necessarily when they're in service of this kind of dreamscape. And
And they
certainly,
help themselves out here, too, in that I don't think anything is actually photorealistic.
no, certainly not. I think there could probably stand to be harder contrast between the scene set in reality and the scene set in the dreamscape because the when we see Jem and Anne back in the real world there, like it's still very highly color corrected and very like
Hmm.
overbearingly blue. But yeah,
And
certainly,
the layouts of the buildings in the real world themselves too are pretty dreamy. Like we already talked about the blindingly white hospital, which contrasts with Thomas's like deep black and gray house.
yes, yeah, it's very much like
Like
the
no wonder the man is depressed.
oh yeah, like it's the Edward Scissorhands house every step of
Yep.
the way. Yeah. But so this is the actual structure of the film, this sort of give and take between the two main plot threads. It's it kind of makes me think of Christopher Nolan at times. Like there's a bit of
Interesting.
yeah, yeah, as we said, 2012. So this was coming not long after Inception came out, and big sort of centerpiece moment in this film is when we find out what happened to Thomas's father. And it prominently places, like the characters on two different axes, like gravity is pulling in two different
Hmm.
directions along 90 degrees. And like I think
And everything moves in
very
very
slow motion. There's
slow
a
motion.
yeah, there's a scene of a character in a chair tipping over very slowly backwards. Like there was definitely something in the water in the wake of Inception coming out. I mean that's maybe not necessarily unique to Imaginarium because it was a huge film in 2010 that just things carry over. But I do think it sort of informs the way that there's this give and take between the real world and the dream world, and
Hmm.
they aren't necessarily influencing each other in real time, but kind of it's edited to kind of give that impression. Like Jem is discovering her father as he's trying to fight his way um to his sort of self-realization in the face of his worsening memory.
And then, of course, at the same time that his suicidal father is falling very slowly backwards in the chair, that snow globe, water globe,
Oh yeah, the
crystal
arabesque.
ball dancer thing, the arabesque is crashing very slowly into a wall. How they ever put that thing back together is beyond me.
Oh yeah, I think Jem was like she must have been working overtime to get that glued back into place.
Hmm.
This is another sort of visual motif that recurs throughout the film, where Jem, as we're given to understand, was emotionally neglected, not abused, I think, but neglected is certainly like the word
You
to
know,
use.
dad was never there. Dad doesn't really care about her, blah, 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 blah. We've heard
Yeah,
this story before.
exactly. And something she was told throughout her life was, if you play the piano well enough, then the girl in the arabesque will dance before you, which of course never happened. So she grew up disillusioned and the kind of daughter who's inclined to pull the plug at the end of her father's life. So this the breaking of the arabesque and the suicide of Thomas's father are sort of held in like there's this sort of tension between the two of them in this sort of centerpiece moment of the film. This is the track Arabesque, which is um, again taken directly from the album. This is an instrumental track. It's all orchestrated. It's very high energy. It's got quite a driving rhythm to it. Um, and it makes it feel almost like an action climax where these two like
Hmm.
sources of trauma sort of converge and resonate with each other, which I thought was quite it's a bold strategy. Let's see
It
how it
is.
plays
It
out
also
for them.
stands, though, in really nice contrast to the other, I guess, real action climax, which is the roller coaster ride
Yes, yeah.
towards the end, where
So
nothing is happening slowly.
exactly, yeah. This is like that's where it is all like Hollywood spectacle that they're going for. Where
Also, like, holy shit, as a real life roller coaster nut, that scene was catnip for me. I want to ride that roller coaster.
like, is there any actual roller coaster in the world where they're like you actually jump a gap? Like that seems
I
like an
don't.
engineering feat.
I don't think you can do that.
I don't think
Like,
you can do that.
possibly someday someone will come up with a way to do that. Um, but there were some drops and some hammerhead turns in there that I was like, you would get amazing airtime on those. Um, the roller coaster scene is also cool though, because I could do if I were writing this in real life without the part where the scary snowman suddenly jumps onto the front of the car and
Mhm.
starts trying to run me off the roller coaster. But of course, we need it here. Brief digression, because we were talking about the snowman earlier. It's a good scary snowman design. It's really
Yes.
easy to make scary snowmen goofy. And I think they did the right thing here by making the scary snowman's arms the focal point of your discomfort with it.
Yeah, these sort of like very gnarled branches. That yeah, they're these sort of wooden claws almost that feel very grasping. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
something I did appreciate over the course of the movie is how he sort of degenerates.
Yes.
And they kind of make a gag of it that I actually thought was kind of darkly funny. Yeah, he's each time we see him, he's progressively a bit more degenerated, but he's sort of passing it off as like, no, I've been through some stuff getting here, but I'm okay. When he's
Mm-hmm.
clawing his way along the ground trying to reach Thomas, which I thought
Mm-hmm.
was that was kind of a good gag. I
It's
mean,
like he's melting, but not melting.
yeah, and again, like it's this whole sort of matrix of like Freudian symbolism being tied together,
Mm-hmm.
where it's implied that Thomas's father was a pilot during the Second World War, First World War. It's not. I guess it would have to be the second, based on the sort of
Yeah.
plane design.
A war.
Yeah, a war. And the snowman was originally built to like resemble like an aviator, like he's dressed in an aviator's jacket and scarf and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I guess it's his traumatic memories associated with his dad that are driving him to you know the snowman is encompassing everything else that came after, like sort of
Mm-hmm.
like this devouring void that takes away every other sort of source of joy and pleasure in his life subsequent to that.
Mm-hmm. And no matter how much it degrades and no matter how weakened it seems to be, the arms are always strong.
Yes, yeah,
And
which
the arms are always there.
yeah, I mean, which sort of stands to reason, like y- when you're talking about a very strong masculine presence in your life. So again, it is all very dime store Freudianism, but sometimes when you just sort of
Mm-hmm.
like layer that on thick enough, it fits a music video idiom, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to bring up, because it's a major through line, certainly in the album, and it's a point of reference in the film too, of course, is "Song of Myself," the Walt Whitman poem.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any particular relationship to Walt Whitman, Mandy?
I like him fine. Sometimes I feel like I should like him more, given my line of work and all that. Um, I wouldn't say I have a particularly special relationship to him, but like everybody reads Song of Myself and has the cells in their body transformed by it at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. I was skimming over it in advance of this episode. I did do a module back in university on like American transcendentalism, so
Oh, nice.
we would touch on Whitman and like Emerson and Walden and all these guys, Thomas Thoreau. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I find Song of Myself, like, not unlike the music of Nightwish, sometimes kind of overwrought, sometimes it's very maximalist. There's a lot going on all at the same time. It is also sort of intermittently really beautiful and really quite poignant. And I think it's certainly kind of a read of Song of Myself to have it be
Mm-hmm.
about this composer who like can only express himself through his arts, like at the expense of, um, connecting on an interpersonal level with the people in his life. I don't think that's necessarily what Whitman was getting at. I think his themes tend to be a bit more high-minded than that. But I don't know. It's a read. It's a jumping off point.
Mm-hmm. It certainly is. And no, I think the similarities that you brought up may have, in fact, somewhat played into the selection of that poem as a centerpiece of Whitman's psyche here. The thinking about it too, the weird pattern in which he wrote his kind of final magnum opus that Jem and Anne discover in his safe,
Yeah.
sort of looks and feels like a roller coaster all by itself. And as parts of it are and similar to the roller coaster's gaps in it, the parts of it are kind of being bled away by the snowman's washing away of his memories.
I hadn't put that together, but you're exactly right. Yeah, it's like how he's sort of written them in these sort of like spirals and like curves and curlicues across multiple sheets of paper. Yeah, of course that's what it is.
And it's an interesting meditation on like what's happening to this character in particular, because you're given the explanation that he has a form of dementia, which would indicate that he's losing his memories involuntarily. But then the actual workings in his psyche suggest that he is giving his memories up.
Yeah.
Until he kind of persuades himself not to.
Yeah, that seems to be and it's a very music video kind of understanding of how dementia works, I guess it would have to be said. But I do like I kind of like the idea, like the sort of kernel of the idea of like the safe of like
Mm-hmm.
his life's work, his magnum opus being locked away, and and Jam and Anne working to sort of uncover this in concert with him, trying to escape from this crap of
Mm-hmm.
forgetfulness. I don't know. There's something, what's the expression? Like you die twice. You die when your
Mm-hmm.
body stops working, and you die the last time somebody says your name. And it's
Mm-hmm.
sort of, the first one's coming after him while he's trying to sort of get ahead of the second one. I don't know. It's kind of, for all that this is very metaphysical, and not a lot is actually happening in terms of the actual plot. Like there barely is a plot, but it still manages
There are
to.
like 3 things that happen in this
Yeah,
movie in the
there's
real world.
yeah, it's a concept album. Like they don't really
Mm-hmm.
lend themselves to detailed plot mechanics, but
Yeah,
it's
which is fine. Like, try to explain the plot of Tommy to me.
exactly,
And
yeah,
Tommy has a downright straightforward plot in comparison
yeah,
to the music of this one.
yeah, or Quadrophenia for that matter. It's mostly just hanging around. It's a hangout film,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yep.
yeah, but despite that, it still manages to get at the kind of sense of momentum that I want from a movie. I
Mm-hmm.
think 80 minutes is probably the upper bound of what you could do with this kind of format. Um, like it's not much longer than the actual album itself is, and
Mm-hmm.
like 74 minutes is long for an album. It's short for a narrative feature.
Mm-hmm. We've established that there's nothing wrong with a short movie.
Oh
Gonna
God,
put it out into the universe again. There's nothing wrong with making a short movie.
no, we've it's alternate ending. We know what the commentariat are after around here. So yeah, it has that
Mm-hmm.
going for it.
Mm-hmm. We didn't talk about the tin soldiers. I was just looking over my
Oh
notes,
yeah,
like, what have we not covered? And I saw the tin soldiers. Oh man, I love those guys.
French tin soldiers are great. They're great friends. I want those guys as my sort of childhood imaginary friends.
Oh man. I love the one whose head is on crooked because it's the one that he stepped on
Yeah,
earlier.
and the sword was bent, which I
It feels like it should be so much creepier and more upsetting than it is, and yet I'm not upset by that or the visual of it.
Yeah, and the fact that they're
Especially
speaking,
since that soldier keeps apologizing for having been in the way.
and the fact that they're speaking with like comedy Monty Python French accents, like
Yes.
your mother was a hamster sort of accents, which
Oh my god.
it's a very sort of cute detail. Like it arrives as the plot's sort of starting to get kind of grim, and it's a really
Hmm.
sort of uplifting moment, literally, when they come together and carry him on his bed when he's too sort of frail
Yeah, they
to.
pick him up and carry him to his memories.
Yeah, and that's in concert with Rest Calm, which might be my favorite song on the album. Really, really nice chorus hook, that one. It's yeah, it's quite heavy, it's quite anthemic, but it's also got a really sort of soothing bridge to it.
Hmm.
It's a good mood for that part of the film.
This is going to sound very grim, but I'm like, that would be good music to die to.
I'd take it. Yeah, why not?
Yeah. If you gotta, might as well have a good soundtrack while it's happening.
Yeah, we were mentioning about like how well incorporated the various songs are. I think Restcom is well done. The one that didn't work for me was when Anne is reminiscing about her time in the band in the real world and during her conversation with Jem. She puts on a song on a record and it just diegetically plays. I think it's "Turn Loose the Mermaids" from the record, and that felt like okay, we need to fit this somewhere.
That, I kind of liked that, because you can tell how annoyed Jem is by it.
Yeah, it also sort of like
I think they kind of knew that this was a contrived and disruptive way to fit the song in,
I
and so
gather
they
that.
ran with it.
I I also gather that she doesn't particularly like Anne, which I kind of like that dynamic.
Did you get that impression?
Mhm. And Anne's sort of like vamping it up. Like
Mm-hmm.
she's such a diva. Like she's very like she's sort of like this aging starlet who's she's the center of any room she walks into.
I love her knee-high stripy Halloween witch socks.
Oh yeah, she's got the Hot Topic socks.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a
She might be 72 years old, but she still shops at Hot Topic.
I'm trying to frame this because, like, if the band that she played in with Thomas was Nightwish, in fact, it either means that Nightwish were around in the 70s or this movie takes place in, like, the future.
I'd go with either one of those.
Yeah, I can groove with either. Like, again, this isn't meant to be literal, any of it.
And this is also very much a movie that doesn't really take place in a time or a place.
No, exactly, yeah. But,
Like, you
it's,
know, Thomas's father probably fought in World War II, which means that we can roughly place the timing of things, but also it doesn't have to be World War II because it's never identified as World War II. It's a war that was big. We don't even know if it's a real war.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm being disingenuous on purpose because it's funny.
Oh, totally. Yes, because when you try to apply the rules of reality to a movie like this, just like there's no point. You'll make yourself crazy.
Yeah, exactly that.
It's like it's mud wrestling with the pig. You will make yourself crazy and Nightwish will enjoy it.
100%. Um, Something that did idly occur to me watching this movie, because, like, obviously, you know, the Thomas being like the character representative of Thomas Holopainen, who is, of course, like the impresario behind Nightwish. Like, this is his vision. Like, he didn't direct the film, but it is absolutely his creative project from its inception. And I was trying to figure out like what this sort of autobiographically says about him because you know he would have been like early 30s when this was made. I haven't actually been able to find anything to the effect of he has kids. If he does, it's not like widely publicized online. It's certainly not on his Wikipedia page or anything like that. So I was wondering like where is this coming from? Like what is he processing with this sort of thought of himself as this sort of um isolated artist who's keeping himself estranged from the other people in his life.
I wonder if he had aging parents.
That that is conceivable, and I don't want to sort of like psychoanalyze. Like, yeah, I try not to do that when it comes to other people's work, just because I don't know them. That's it seems rude,
Mhm.
but there was an idea that occurred to me, and perhaps impolitic. They had a messy breakup with their first singer.
Ah,
Yeah,
maybe.
Tarja, they're one of the founding members of the band, and indeed, the woman who Annette Olsen replaced, she was kicked out essentially in the late
Oh.
2000s. It wasn't for any sort of lack of talent, but all got quite acrimonious and messy. And I'm wondering if Jam is meant to be sort of a stand-in for Tarja in this in this sort of
Interesting.
auto-hagiography. If so, I don't know how to feel about that.
That would be, yeah. That strikes me as the sort of thing that definitely could have had an influence on the story and a number of other things about it, but that, like, you can't say by any stretch of the imagination that that is directly what's going on
No,
in
definitely
the
not.
story.
Again, like
I do wonder though if Tuomas Jalapenian or anybody else in the band had aging parents at the time though, because in terms of the story, like that's the most well done and moving part of it.
yeah, I could see that. And yeah, the eventual reconciliation is it's quite heartwarming, like legitimately. Like I wasn't expecting to go into this and actually get a little bit choked up by the end, but like it wasn't not there.
Hmm.
Um yeah, I could see that. Like certainly, the band members at the time would have been the right age to be at that point. So
To
yeah, it's
potentially be dealing with that, yeah.
yeah. So it could be, and it does resonate.
Yes. Warning to potential viewers, because I know not a lot of you have seen this movie. If you decide to watch it, if you have dealt with aging parents, this might be a little bit of a rough watch for you in places.
Conceivably. Or indeed, family members who have like dealt with like self-harm or suicidal ideation. Like that's
Yeah, there's a lot of depressing stuff going
yeah,
on in here.
it gets pretty dark in places. Like for a fantasy movie, like it's not exactly
Hmm.
a light ride by any stretch.
No, but it never feels bleak, and I appreciate that.
No, it definitely feels ultimately hopeful. There's a lot of that there. There's definitely hope for the possibility of human connection, like even after like things have gone wrong.
And even like when there's, yeah, even when the characters are at their darkest, lowest points, there is so much happening around them that you don't have time to wallow in it.
No, yeah, it's like as I say, it's in a very sort of like dynamic, um, fast-moving situation where there's always stakes, there's always something to play for. It never feels like it's just as you say, indulging in angst. It never feels like it's wallowing.
Which again, given that it is only an 85-minute movie, and like you said, 85 minutes is like pushing the upper bound of what this could conceivably be without really overstaying its welcome. The constant movement is appreciated.
Definitely.
Like it helps that the music is so propulsive too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, the album itself, it's extremely maximalist. Like the orchestration really doesn't
You don't
like
say.
there's the orchestration really doesn't lay off very much. It feels like all the sort of are you familiar with like Phantom of the Opera, like the
Oh yeah.
oh yeah, like the show-stopping moments in Phantom of the Opera. Imagine like 75 minutes of that. Um it's not without its dynamics. Like Slow Love Slow is quite a downbeat sort of affair. Throw the Owl and the Dove, that's a very sort of wistful ballad. But even those sort of like have their bits where the instrumentation really swells.
It feels to me almost like if the Trans-Siberian Orchestra had a baby with Moulin Rouge and that baby was a band.
Oh yeah, like I mean, Trans-Siberian Orchestra is a good point of reference because I mean that's like it was one of the members of Savatage who formed the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and they were sort of a forerunner of the kind of thing that Nightwish are doing. But
Hmm.
yeah, like that's a good comparison. Like with a bit of
Hmm.
Cirque du Soleil thrown in there while we're at it.
Yeah, it's a wild musical experience. And especially again for me, because, opening the horizons over here, 90% of what I listen to is like mostly a cappella music with maybe one accompanying guitar or banjo. So,
No, that's it. Like it's the far other end of the spectrum.
yep.
But it is probably my favorite Nightwish album.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard most of their stuff, and it's the one that strikes me as being the most motivated by a coherent vision, as opposed to just being big for the sake of big, which I think was definitely a fault of Dark Passion Play, which
Okay.
preceded it.
I could see it.
Yeah, but no, I recommend it. Like it's even if you're not into metal, it sort of extends a hand across the aisle to people who aren't into that kind of style.
Yeah, I can see it. And how did this movie do? Like, did anybody see it outside of the internet Nightwish fan community?
I've no idea in what. I don't think it was like screened widely. I don't think it was even like made available like on a streaming service or anything like that. I think this was very much it was released in the same way you would release a live DVD, sort of thing you were more likely to find in the music section of a store as opposed to the film section.
Yes, the wiki tells me that it made. That's a weird wording of it, but the wiki seems to be implying that its budget in toto, including like advertising and stuff, was $3.7 million, and that it made $575,000.
That sounds feasible, yeah.
This also does not strike me as the kind of thing where anybody was worried about making a profit on it.
I don't think so. No, I think this was conceived from the ground up as a loss leader. I mean, setting aside that it is definitely a vanity project, like this is like Nightwish make their money from their touring and their live shows. Like that's their business model, and this was like a part of their brand. It wasn't meant to make money on its own.
And you know what? I'm happy for you. If you can afford to blow a few $1,000,000 on the world's biggest music video just to make yourself and your fans happy, more power to you.
100%. Like, I'm a fan of strange routes to market. That's like more people should take risks on sort of like non-traditional ways to get something out into the world. Is my ethos, and this
Totally.
definitely did that.
Which, great. Good on ya. Is there anything about the movie that we haven't covered that we need to?
No, I think that leaves it for me. How about you, Mandy? What did you really think of this movie?
What did I really think of this movie? That's the question I turn on you!
Okay, I'm going to guess. I think there are probably things in here that maybe you did resonate with, that you found novel, but also very much not really your style. I'm going to guess at 2.5 stars.
Interesting.
3.5. Oh, nice one.
Now, here's the funny part. If you had asked me yesterday, immediately after I watched the movie, I would have said 2.5.
Okay, interesting.
Having had a little bit of time to sleep on it, I think I grew warmer on it.
Okay, nice.
So, here's my assessment of it, basically. The story is kind of silly.
Yes.
Like the overall story. Like, my notes on the story were like, oh, it's Big Fish, but with a girl.
Yeah, pretty incontrovertibly.
And there is nothing unpredictable happens in this movie.
No, like,
story-wise.
Of
Like,
the very little that happens at all. But, yeah.
these are all the traditional beats of the estranged adult child reconciles with dying parent storyline, which we have seen many times, many ways. Which is not to say it doesn't or can't work as a story, but it was also just like, it kind of sapped away any sense of stakes. And I have spent enough time around Tim that I have definitely developed a streak of the story doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But when the movie insists on the story as much as this movie insists on its story for some reason, the story kind of has to matter a little bit. Because it kept interrupting the stuff that I was really enjoying to tell more of the story. And those were the parts where I felt like the movie's momentum kind of died.
Yeah.
However, the non-story stuff is all cool enough that once the story, because again, it's not very memorable, kind of faded away in my mind and only the wacko audiovisual stuff stuck around, I was like, that was cool.
I'm glad.
Like, that's not something I'm going to be watching quite like that anytime soon.
No, there's very little. That's the sort of thing that I try to bring to this show is, like, I don't know what that was, but there's not really much else like it out there. And that's sort of what I consider my mandate.
Well, you've gone 3 for 3 on that so far.
Good, I'm glad.
So, well done.
I mean, like, for my part, yeah, I like this movie. I like it as a fan in large parts. Like, it's like there is like an element of fan service, seeing sort of these songs in their audiovisual context. But I also think there is something to this sort of vein of symbolism that it's sort of like splashing around in. It's not disciplined. I think it does suffer from the I think it suffers from the actors generally not being great. Like, that seems mean.
Yes. I think the actors are suffering from a script written by people who only kind of know how the English language works.
That too, and also the fact that they're mostly acting opposite green screen. And like Quinn Lord, like, I know it's not his fault.
Oh, he's helpless.
Yeah, he does not know. Like, there's a tennis ball. Like, he looks like a deer in headlights.
No, a child, and like you said, it's not his fault. A child who has never had to act against a green screen before needs a director who is very gifted at working with both children and green screens in order to pull that off.
100%.
And that list of directors is very small.
Oh yeah. I'm trying to think. Like, I suppose Spielberg working with Haley Joel Osment like leaps to mind, but that's yeah, there's not a lot of circumstances where that ends well.
Nope,
Never work with children or animals. That's the received wisdom, isn't it?
it is. And if you're gonna work with children and animals, don't put them in front of green screens. But I guess they didn't really have a choice here.
No, 100%. Like, oh, like, can you imagine what the practical like effect realized version of this would have cost?
Oh my god.
That would have been something.
There are also parts of this, funnily enough, since we just talked about this on the podcast, that reminded me a little bit of Labyrinth.
Yeah,
And then
there's
when I
definitely some
start
of
thinking
that,
of
yeah.
Labyrinth, I of course start wanting puppets. And then I think they didn't have the money for that. They didn't have the money or the skill for that.
Like exactly as Cameron and Tim were saying on that episode, that's getting to be a bit of a lost art. I'm
Mhm.
really actually glad for Project Hail Mary sort of reintroducing puppetry as something people respond to.
Mhm.
That and Mandalorian and Grogu, weirdly enough, like two silver linings to film going in 2026.
If nothing else, it's got a very cute puppet. It's true.
It's true.
But yes, so genuinely thank you for that movie.
I'm glad.
It was a good
I'm
time.
glad you enjoyed.
So next month, we'll be back with whatever great movie my next guest decides to assign me. And in the meantime, remember to check out the podcast every single Tuesday. Andrew, thanks again. And we will see you all next time.